here since the weather it's been raining a lot. But what we're doing today is we're changing out the Chevy truck brakes, and they're making a squeaking noise. So I checked them out from where the rims are, and I noticed that the actual brake is a little bit down, not too far down where it's undrivable, but I want to change them since they're lifetime warranty anyway. If you buy from AutoZone or O'Reilly, you get that lifetime warranty, so might as well change them out. This time I'm going to pull out the brakes and take them in and then reinstall them, so I don't have to make 2 trips. Usually I'll buy the new brakes if I'm around those places, and then I'll swap them out that way. But it should take about maybe an hour or so. It's been a while since I changed them, since they're ceramic base. They last a lot longer, but they do wear on the rotor. But we're going to inspect that as soon as the tires are off and get those swapped out. Okay, so after taking off your tire, inspecting the other side, it's ideal to inspect both sides. But visually inspecting the other side looked fine from when the rim was on, and it may still look fine. Depending on how many spokes you have in your rim will determine if you could actually see like the wear on your brake and the wear on your rotor. But as I took off the tire, I rubbed my finger across this surface here, and you can feel it like it's wavy. So that's not a good thing, because that means that your brake pads are wearing uneven on your rotor. And there's also a little lip here. The other side, when I checked, didn't have a lip, but that's why it's a good idea to check both sides. So we're going to be replacing the rotors evenly, so that way it's brand new rotors up front and you don't have to worry about that. So after you get it off, the older style vehicles, or at least the pickups, they'll have this casting piece right here, and it goes from this side all the way down to the bottom, and this caliper kind of seats in between the 2 tabs. And on my particular vehicle, I need a 3/8 drive Allen to take off the 2 pins that are back here that are holding this caliper in place, right there and right there. The newer style vehicles, or the vehicles with sports brakes, they basically have 2 bolts that come off, and you could access the brake shoes right in this area, and they slide out once you pull the pins out. The actual newer style vehicles will have 2 bolts holding that in place, but the racing brakes and stuff only require you to take out 2 pins and a cotter pin for each of them, and the brake shoes slide out this way. But for this particular vehicle, we got to take out this whole caliper, pull out the brakes from the front side, or the shoes from the front, and then we got to repress this piston to the rear, so that way we have enough room to fit our new stuff in. So after checking out the front, it's a good idea to check out your rear brakes. And this particular vehicle has drum rear brakes, so we'll check that out right now and determine if we're gonna need to replace these as well. So after taking off your rim, you just slide your drum out, since these aren't disc, and right off the back you can see a lot of gunk. So there's a lot of gunk in that area. Looks like a really thick grease, and then in here as well. So if you look at the shoe, it's pretty thick. New ones aren't much thicker than this, maybe about right there. So those are pretty decent. So what we're going to do is use some brake cleaner and make sure you put something down and wipe off all this gunk, so that way you don't have a slick surface here, and that'll give you more of a better braking in the rear, because I noticed the rear is not braking as hard as the front, which it will not, because these are drums, but it should still assist in the braking. So we'll take off all this gunk, and yeah, you could feel that it's like really gooey right here as well. So we'll clean that up. Okay, so as you can see, I had to use a rubber mallet to knock out the top and the bottom because it's such a tight fit that just wiggling it and the friction you have on these brake shoes, it's really hard to get out. Especially since we have this lip right here that the brake shoes kind of sink into. These bolts do not go all the way completely out, far enough back for you to slide it out of these holes right there, and then the whole thing comes off. So don't try to take out the bolts all the way. So now let's take off these brake pads and then find some new ones to put on it.
No one can save us now. The gates are open and the truth is flooding out. Time after time you said I made you feel something new. Lie after lie you told you made me believe in you. I am strong.
Okay, so one thing I found out is this is the outer bearing part number, and got these from O'Reilly again. So I noticed right here in this corner, this edge, it's leaning all the way to the side, and then there's some pitting going on there. It's because it had a lack of grease and it started heating up. So if you look at the new one right there, it's not leaning over to either side, and these are brand new. So I'm gonna replace the outer bearing only because one of the so as you could see when you rotate it, this side's fine, and then it starts dipping down here, and that's where it has the most pitting. The bearing comes like this. It comes with this race that sits on the outside like that, and the bearing sits in it. You do not need this if you replaced your rotor, but if you didn't replace your rotor, if you look in here, a little shiny area down there, that's exactly what this is. So if you didn't replace your rotor, you're going to want to insert this just so you have a brand new surface that this bearing's going to sit in. If you plan to replace the rotor, then you don't need this. You could use this to press in other things later down the road that is this diameter, so it's a good idea to save it and use it for something like that. But it could be a pain because you're going to need a press to press this in. So I would recommend, if you don't have a press or the tools to put this in, take the other one out. Just buy a rotor. They're only $60. This bearing's $10. Your time and effort to put this in, you know, is it worth $60? It's up to you, but I would recommend to just get a new rotor and then do your brakes while you're at it if you have lifetime warranty. Okay, so when installing your brakes, the first thing you want to do is make sure your reservoir is open. So you want to come up to the top, crack open your reservoir up here. So if you want, you could put a rag across this, so if it starts coming up, it'll soak into the rag, because you don't want this to overflow. And I'm just going to set that on top, and then you come down to the bottom, and we're going to start with the piston. So we're going to crush the piston back in, and then you'll start seeing this level rise.
Don't want to save us now. I'm letting go of the weight that pulls me down. Time after time I said you made me feel something new. Lie after lie I told, I made you believe in me too. All this time we've been searching for someone to make us stronger. Scared of being alone, we fake our love, but without you I am strong.
Alright guys, so after you're done with the assembly of your brakes, make sure you snap this back in. Make sure you check the fluid levels. So as you can see, mine's about right there. So it's about 3/4 of the way full. That's fine. You just want it to stay above the quarter. So wipe that off. So make sure that's down. Make sure your wheels are all together. And then you're gonna come to the inside of the vehicle, and then before you drive, make sure you pump the brakes. So let's see, what we're gonna do is pump them just so that way they get stiff. Once they're stiff, we're gonna start the car. Okay, so you continue to pump them, everything's fine. One thing to know is do not pump the brakes while the reservoir is open. It could cause air to go in your lines. So after you pumped them, everything works good. Put it in reverse and hit your brake to make sure that it's gonna grab. Just be cautious, you know what I mean? That being said, that's gonna conclude today's video. If you like this video, give it a thumbs up. That's appreciated. If you want to see videos like this and other content that I'm going to be posting on this YouTube channel, definitely consider subscribing. Until next time, I'll see you in the next one.